Team Fortress 2, a distinctive lack of team recognition by Zesty Jesus. I have seen a couple things in regards to the certain spy tuxedo outfit going around, the pyro specifically as well. I think the Heavy has one where, because of war paints and certain cosmetics, certain miscellaneous things, team recognition has kind of gone downhill. And I thought it'd be really interesting to kind of explore the concept.
The most important element of TF2's visual design is color.
Yeah.
Why? Team. It's in the name. The classes, the guns, the movement, everything else comes second. Because first, you gotta know who you're shooting at. Of course, TF2 isn't the only game that utilizes color as a visual aid to mark friend from foe. Certainly wasn't the first and wasn't the last. But TF2's developers didn't just hue shift all of the player models and then clock out for the day, or rely on the more, let's say, modern practices of slapping outlines and nameplates over everybody because, oh, good visual design is hard. No amount of bit rate's gonna fix this cluster. Fuck my god.
Yeah.
Nope, TF2's developers just used color. Color. In tandem with meticulous, deliberate design choices that not only create the necessary distinction of friend from foe, but also prevent that distinction from becoming an eyesore that detracts from the game's iconic visual style. Color, 2 teams, defines TF2's gameplay at square one. And here's how.
I'm into this. I actually really like looking at design elements like this, especially because I've been really enjoying Team Fortress 2 and seeing a lot of back and forth in regards to what people think of certain war paint combinations and stuff, where you can definitely obfuscate your team. At least at a glance.
Truth be told, I could spend hours discussing every facet of TF2's art style, but for the purposes of this video, let's just focus on color. It's undoubtedly evident to anyone who's played TF2 for more than 5 minutes that the game's color palettes are defined by washed out, pastel-y, and neutral tones, dusty, earthy, or industrial environments. You never see fully saturated or flat colors, aside from very specific instances.
I'm trying to figure. Okay, no, I'm on HD. That's just that person's bitrate.
Higher levels of saturation are specifically placed onto objects and events that act as deliberate visual cues, so players can quickly interpret what's happening. For example, bullet tracers, projectiles, explosions, muzzle flares, crits, ubercharge, signage for guidance, small areas on the map to remind players of where they are, red or blue side, and, most importantly, on the character models, so players can quickly identify friend from foe. So, how did TF2's developers structure team recognition so that it preserves the game's distinct stylization? Well, for starters, they made the mental task of team recognition a smooth, reactive process, and not a chore. The first step is to establish a clear difference between 2 teams. So, we have red and blue. Well,
fairly
no
simple.
shit, but why did Valve choose these colors? Well, red and blue are close to complementary colors, meaning they strongly contrast with each other.
Right.
One is very obviously not the other, and it's very easy to tell at a glance.
I mean, yeah, so like if you I mean, look at the color chart provided, right? I mean, you could get a similar effect with purple and yellow. You could go like well, no, so opposite on the color wheel. Yeah. So yeah, your purple and your yellow, green and red would also be clashing, right? Blue, orange, right? Like there's a contrast there, right? It's high contrast, easily identifiable.
Unlike with, say, purple and blue, or orange and yellow. The next thing Valve did was make red and blue the first things your eyes want to see. There are several ways of going about this, but rather than simply highlighting entire character models or using disgusting colored outlines,
I feel like this is what Halo Infinite does, actually, where it kind of becomes like an overview, I think. I'd have to look at it again. But that's actually why I really didn't like the color system in Infinite.
TF2's developers meticulously colored each character model so as to keep them grounded in TF2's visual style. And of course, this means avoiding overly saturated colors, which is why TF2 uses very distinct sets of colors for each team. One for red, and one for blue. You have the primary team colors themselves, which are then supplemented with secondary darker and washed out tones, none of which are highly saturated. And when these colors are juxtaposed against each other, this creates a strong contrast from dark to light that naturally guides the eye towards the primary team color.
Sure.
This contrast is the tool that Valve uses to present team colors in a readable fashion, and you only need a tiny amount of saturation to pull it off. However, the medic is an exception. He's white, or light blue, so players can identify him as the medic, but the contrast between his lab coat and blue or red still achieves that natural guidance. Proof of concept for you. What color was that circle just now?
Red.
How about that one?
Yellow.
Most of you could probably provide swift answers without even thinking about it.
Yep.
That's because the typical response time to visual stimuli is about 1/4 of a second. But I left that on screen for 1/3 of a second just to be generous.
Right.
But what color were the larger squares behind those circles?
Ah, so the yellow one was purple, and the square around the red one, I believe, was blue.
What color was the background? Fewer of you can answer those questions without going back in the video. That's how effective contrast is at guiding the eye. And now listen, this isn't to say that the secondary and tertiary colors can be anything, so long as contrast is present. In fact, these additional colors are deliberately team-associated as well, because they accentuate and emphasize the primary team color and therefore readability. If they were just a mishmash of other colors, it'd be a hot fucking mess, and you'd have no idea what you're looking at. So that's color choice out of the way. Up next comes color placements. The primary team colors, red and blue, are always located on specific, large areas of the character model that are always visible from almost any angle. As a result, no matter where you're looking, it's very obvious what team someone is on. These primary team colors are not limited to smaller areas, like extremities or finer details. It's not enough. The medic's hands could be argued as an exception, but his hands are massive, as are any merc's hands, and they're always thrust out in front of him, occupying a lot of visual real estate. His team-colored backpack makes up for a lack of visibility from the rear, but most importantly, his colored medi-beam fills in the gaps. Something else to note is that if a character model completely lacks the aforementioned contrasting areas, like the spy or to a lesser extent the pyro, almost every square inch of their character model is team-colored, yet muted with faded tones or subtle sooty gradients. So
I feel like with a spy it makes sense too, because like he's tall, right? But he has a really small hitbox. Like he's very tall and lithe, right? So I feel that like with the heavy you could get away with a little less of the color because he's just so massive. But because the spy is just smaller, right? I feel like that's also a thing to point out.
To maintain stylistic adherence. Do note that I said specific color placement, and that specificity is extremely important because, during play, 99% of player interactions involve mostly default models with mostly default color placements. As such, players' brains are trained to seek out the same colors in roughly the same spots as guides for play. It's why they're there. And preserving these guides is crucial. Otherwise, it's gonna throw players off. Keep this in mind because we're gonna come back to it later. The final piece comes from TF2's original environments.
It is its anal passage.
Which, again, contain mostly neutral and washed out colors. These muted settings further accentuate the brighter team colors on the character models, even at a distance, because these brighter colors get sandwiched between darker and washed out tones, so they really pop out to the eye.
It feels very cartoonish, but he's absolutely correct, right? It's not like because we were playing like Silent Hill 2 Remake and we were playing Silent Hill Forte between all the crashes that I got, right? But like, I mean, there's situations where I'm just like, where do I go? Like points of interest just kind of blend in together, right? Versus something like TF2 where it's like, yeah, you'll have your maps and stuff, but like the maps, yeah, you want to know where you are on the map. You want to have your, where you are spatially. You want to be able to recognize that. But the focus is like, you're not necessarily staring at a staircase, if there's a blue heavy next to it, right? Your eye is going to latch onto that blue heavy, right? If you're, say, running on 2-4, right, through the gray hallways, you're going to see a red scout just zip zoom towards you, right? Or like a charging demo knight, right? Because the colored trail follows him, right? So there's a number of like redundancies that help make you understand what you're seeing there, right? You know that there is a blue heavy next to the stairs. You know that there is a red scout or red charging demo knight coming at you, right?
Not to mention, TF2's uncluttered backgrounds, simple, impressionistic textures, and very distinctive lighting processes also help the Merc stand out against everything else. As you can see, TF2's developers made team identification so easy, you don't even think about it. You process color, friend from foe, in a fraction of a second, and that defines TF2's fast-paced gameplay. And we all take it for granted, because all of this was deliberately made to seamlessly integrate into TF2's style, feeling natural and pleasing to the eye, rather than just being obvious.
Right.
And if you can't identify what team someone is on, at a glance, that negatively detracts from gameplay. This puts you at an unfair disadvantage against the next player. They can see who you are right away, but you can't see who they are. If you pause, or get fooled, even for a split second more to process what team someone's on, by then it's too late. They've shot you. So why?
That's the concept of camouflage we brought up, where someone brought up from like a definition standpoint, it's breaking the silhouette, right? But like, you know, playing something like Metal Gear Solid Delta, or I guess Metal Gear Solid 3 originally, right? Like, if you're trying to find the end, right? And you have to look and you know the end is in a patch of grass, right? But you have to strain your eyes for just a brief second. That brief second, even if you're looking at him because he's blending into the grass, is enough for him to just clap you with a round, right? Like, that it's the concept of camouflage. It's not that you're trying to hide yourself completely, because that's a bonus, right? But to have someone have a brief delay in them acting because they can't quite acknowledge you for you to get the strike in, right?
Bring this up. Oh, well, you thought this was just gonna be a little lesson in TF2's design. Oh, no, sir. We gotta get on somebody's case here. This is my channel, after all. I am indeed the king of complaints, the prince of protest, the czar of objection. It is my duty to do this.
Fair enough.
As TF2's corpse continues to shamble about on loot box strings, less care, let's say, has been granted towards cosmetic creation and acceptance. As a result, we have an ever-growing, but thankfully still small handful of TF2 items that hurt team recognition.
Yep.
Oh my god, you motherfucker, I thought you were blue.
You can't do that to us, Zesty.
Other creators briefly touched on team recognition years ago, however comically, but I've yet to see anyone fully elaborate upon it, let alone show how certain items can degrade it. So, just for shits and giggles, I figured I'd run through a few examples of items that hurt team recognition, just to show how easily it can be violated. Hopefully this'll raise a little red flag to Valve saying, hey guys, maybe you should stop adding items like this, and maybe it'll be a swift kick to the dick for workshoppers. Hey dipshits, maybe you should actually pay attention to the game you're making items for? That'd be a pretty good thing to do, I'd say.
So I have heard the complaint that TF2 is just kind of like workshop slot status. And I actually, during my Metal Gear Delta playthrough, because somebody ended up friending me on Steam, and I thought they were in the server. I don't know if they were or not. But like they literally interrupted the stream to spam me with, hey, I'll give you keys if you rate my workshop thing for TF2. And I'm like, no. If I like your submission, yeah, I'll upvote it. I'm not going to take bribes for keys or anything like that. And that's the thing is, like, I've never heard anyone talk about this, but then you mention it, and they're like, oh, yeah, that happens, right? Like, the community will just tell you it happens, right? It's not like they're trying to hide it or obfuscate it. It's just like, how do you, like, if somebody comes into Yu-Gi-Oh! And is like, oh, I can't use Pot of Greed because, you know, like, yeah, this was used in the anime, why can't I use it? And it's like, then you have to like take a second to process that they're asking a genuine question, right? And then you're like, well, you can't use this for a number of reasons, not least of all, we play way worse versions of Pot of Greed, you know, we'll gladly play it. It's just like, I don't know, it's interesting to have seen that happen. And that's actually why I've just really like tried to like shift away from the workshop. The moment I hear workshop mentioned, I kind of just like kill the conversation. I kind of just move on, because like if I like your submission, I will go out of my way to look at it on the workshop page and I like it, yeah, I'll just upvote it. No keys necessary. I think that's just a really weird practice that seems normalized, and I personally don't agree with it, right? Like, sure, I'll do like a stream maybe of like, we'll go like on the TF2 Steam workshop and we'll like look at stuff and like, does this work? Does this not work? Right? But this seems like there's a lot of insular issues kind of feeding into themselves. So if this is the practice, or these are the practices, this doesn't necessarily surprise me that we have things that are, changing, team recognition or obfuscating team recognition to give an advantage, right? I mean, as Destiny players would say with when they had item crafting, right? Like, it invalidates the core gameplay loop, right? Invalidating the core gameplay loop of not recognizing friend from foe, I would argue is a problem.
Oh yeah, and if that don't work, the inevitable surge of people using these cosmetics as a result of this video will absolutely show everybody else that, yeah, this ain't good. You gotta fight fire with fire, as they say, otherwise nothing gets fucking done. I'm not on your team, sir! Now then, for starters, most TF2 players know about paints. These tools paint cosmetics
I know about these in passing, I don't know how they function.
variety of colors, ranging from acceptably TF2, all the way to... And in most cases, paints are totally fine, at least when it comes to team recognition. Most paints either tread in neutral or team color territory, but others, they can cause problems. We'll get back to that. For hats, you can get away with almost any color, because these regions exist up and out of the way from main team-colored areas.
I don't think anybody really cares about hats, right? I think across the spectrum, we all kind of look at this, kind of scratch our head and go, yeah, I mean, it's hats, it's whatever. Have a lime green Salmon Max hat.
This is also why TF2 can get away with something as gaudy as unusuals.
Yeah.
Usually. For body cosmetics, most of these are also fine, because they either lack paint regions entirely, or their paint regions are small. They're accentuating details, rather than replacements for large areas of default model color. And yes, saturated paints are indeed brighter than the primary team colors, and get the viewer's attention in all of the wrong ways. That's indicative of other art style violations rather than issues with team recognition. And
try and use flat colors that are close to TF color family and base game rules. Try to avoid full black, fully white. Wait. What is this from? Is this like an official dev Q&A? Some guidelines for matching TF2's art style and improving the chances of my items getting it. So this seems like this is official Valve, right? Official Valve Q&A. This is a tricky question we grapple with daily. When we started, the game followed the idealized 50s, 60s Americana look. Nothing too modern, hyper-realistic, or overly cartoony. Which the stupid cat, the ugly cat that the medic and spy get, this would technically violate this. Clearly, the art style has evolved over the years. Here are some guidelines. Hat should maintain the personality of the character. Heavies, boxing gloves, scouts, batter some. Okay. Team Fortress generally has realistic proportions with slightly exaggerated aspects to emphasize certain areas. Try and avoid fine surface details, no scales, skin pores, fabric texture, super detailed norms. Take a look at the giant size TF2's characters' hands and imagine what they would build. Okay. Try and use flat colors that are close to TF color family. And then a subtle vertical gradient and subtle ambient occlusion layers multiplied over the colors. So, I guess this is a direct FAQ. So this tells me that the item itself isn't necessarily the problem. This tells me that when this is mixed with the already implemented Warpaint system, that's when this becomes a problem.
in my opinion, paint colors like these should have never been put in the game.
Correct.
Give me cancer now, guy!
The key takeaway here is that paint regions, and cosmetics in general, should not replace large areas of expected default model color, without taking measures to ensure that team identification and stylistic adherence are indeed preserved.
Behold the red pyro. Yeah, this is it. I've actually got a couple of these things because I was going to actually do this because I'm that guy. But just honestly to make a point of like, yeah, this is why this is... looking at this, you inherently should look at this and say this is a blue pyro. But it's a red pyro. That's the problem here.
This is how TF2 cosmetics should be handled.
Yeah.
Not like this.
No.
We got the water waders, the flavorful baggies, and the deity's dress for pyro. Not only are all these paintable, but their paint regions are so massive, they remove nearly all team color, depending on what you paint them. Wow, I mean, hey, this is an issue for obvious reasons. If players see a character model that is mostly not team colored at most angles, including the most important ones, they got no idea what team they're on.
Bro, I have no idea. How do you genuinely tell in this case? How do you tell what in the middle one? How do you tell?
No shit. And even though this may come off as insultingly obvious for some people, it needs to be said. Colors adjacent to red and blue can be very easily mistaken as red and blue at a glance, and can throw players off. Orange isn't as neutral as some think it is. Bright orange or warmer yellow are neither red nor blue, sure, but that doesn't mean neutral. When we're playing TF2, we're looking for expected team colors. In the absence of these expected colors, the game wires our brains to associate warmer colors with red and cooler colors with blue. So,
I think on community servers like hyper, and I don't mean this in a derogatory sense, like hyper casual, like old quick play status, right? I think this is fine. I don't think there's necessarily an issue here, right? Now, obviously, if you're trying to go on like Uncle Topia, right? Obviously, you kind of want some sort of team recognition, right? Obviously, for obvious reasons. But it's definitely one of those things like I look at, kind of scratch my head, and just go like, okay, like you should never see this in casual. You should never see this in ranked. You should never see this in any quote-unquote official capacity, right? This should always be a community thing. And I'm sure that there is something, whether it's ranked or whether it's casual. I'm sure there's something that completely negates the cosmetics, right? I would assume so, but I don't know. Like, can you imagine if this was allowed in ranked? We've had skins in League of Legends and Smite that got, like, nerfed because they helped obfuscate a champion or god against the background of environment, right? Like, Team Fortress 2 wants to, do the whole, like, well, we want another Dota or CS, game, another competitive game. This is not how you handle that.
in a split second, if someone is presented with a character model that is 80% orange, guess what? Orange becomes red. Or
yeah, I would assume this would be red at a glance.
blue becomes, well, blue. Hence, why most people do shit like this. They dye a whole pyro set Manco orange and another color similar to slate, and then wear them on the opposite teams. And man, does this fuck with people. I played with these pyro sets for 5 minutes and got away with some seriously stupid shit. Almost.
I hate that. Like, he's outlining a point. He's illustrating a point, right? But there, there's definitely people who would use this maliciously.
Immediately.
Yeah, because you just don't know.
Oh, God. Hi, I'm on your team, friend.
And then over the course of a few weeks, I had countless complaints from players both off and on my team that they had no idea what they were shooting at. One of the more common occurrences was a medic thinking I was on his team, him then trying to heal me, and then getting toasted like a marshmallow. This happened.
So here's the thing, okay? Because I feel like people could make a false equivalence here to, wasn't there a really big like Dark Souls streamer or someone in the Souls community who like would like hack the game or like would invade people and like inflict them with like some really serious stuff? Like there's people who do that in games, and they're trying to make a point, quote unquote, because they want to, well, this is something that the devs should fix, right? And I've known somebody who openly just defended this behavior to me, where it's like, well, this is FromSoft not fixing this, and this is proving a point and trying to force FromSoft into action to patch up some of this. And it's like, but you're really being malicious at that point, right? You're also using, especially if you are cheating, if you are hacking, right? And say maybe like in Dark Souls 1, just maybe like perma-egging someone, right? Like, that's a problem, right? Like, we can look at that and go, like, you are being malicious. This, what he's doing, is not a true equivalence to that, because he's using in-game systems as they are presented. Sure, it's going to make some players get a little butthurt, and I can't disagree with that sentiment, right? I'd be pretty butthurt if I saw this in-game. But it's like, it's using the systems in-game in a non-invasive way that helps illustrate a problem to generate buzz to resolve the issue, right? Like, that's the difference here.
So many times that I lost track. And beyond that, players were often so fooled I could just waltz into their team like I was one of them and wreak absolute havoc. Players would even bump right into me, head on, and then fucking die.
Hello? He has no idea! I feel so bad!
And yeah, typically
Dude is actually just playing better spy.
veterans would pick up on it after getting fooled 1 or 2 times, but other players got tricked every single time. It's pretty bad. And I mean, hey, this isn't even a bug. These are cosmetics you can buy and use right now. And I mean, if you don't believe me, I mean, just try these cosmetics out yourself. I mean, you got to spend a little bit of money. It's basically pay to win, but you've likely seen all the background footage by now and just how easy it is to throw players off.
So how you would classify this as pay to win is you would try just a normal quote-unquote set that allows for team recognition, and then you would try a set that obfuscates team recognition or eliminates team recognition altogether, and you would directly compare your KDs. If your KD is going to be higher in any capacity, right, on average. So let's say you do 100 games normally, and you do 100 games with obfuscated team recognition, and there is a direct, yes, this out of 100 games, there is an absolute advantage to this. Grats, that is now pay to win.
So yeah, these pyro items very obviously violate team recognition thanks to their massive paint regions. They're
Actually, I might do that. I might play 100 games with that.
not a problem when they're unpainted, but when they are painted, they are a royal pain in the ass, because they genuinely disrupt gameplay. It's frustrating, and I want Valve to stop adding items like this, and for workshoppers to stop making paint regions the size of goddamn Mars. When paint regions go beyond accentuating details, it creates more distracting visual noise that confuses people during play. You gotta strike a healthy balance between form and function. You can't throw out function for, well, this. You gotta pay attention, people, seriously. So that's paintable cosmetics. Up next are cosmetics that just remove all team color. Let's take a look at the Bushman for Sniper, a cosmetic we just received for summer. Sniper's main team color all resides on his shirt. And that shirt is just gone. It's just gone. Look at this. No paint required. It's practically free. I mean, yes, how silly of me, of course. Sniper's pants. Those are technically team-colored, but they aren't what the eyes gravitate towards first.
No, they're
Here's
muted.
the problem. Most Sniper cosmetics preserve his primary team-colored shirt. In fact, 99.9% of them do. Default colors on the same expected areas. Why is this important? Well, something I should have mentioned earlier is that the saturated primary team colors are always constrained to the upper half of all player models, except for Spy. The secondary and tertiary colors guide the eyes towards the bright torso, either via gradients or sharp boundaries. Remember, contrast. This was done intentionally, so players' eyes are guided towards the torso, where most of the game's crucial visual cues lie. For example, what weapon someone is using, if they're firing at you, if they're looking at you, what class they are, and of course, what team they're on. The accentuating colors were not designed to be team identifiers, but rather the guides towards this critical information. If you remove that key information, it throws players off, because they expect primary team color on everyone's torso, and not neutral flesh tones. And against the pastel-y neutral tones of most maps, which flesh is, and with Sniper's gun thrust in front of him, blocking what little team-colored real estate is left, good fucking luck telling what team he's on.
Right, and that's the thing, right? That the camouflage effect, breaking that silhouette, making it so that they have to question themselves, right? Because if he was playing here, right, if Zesty Jesus was playing here and he wanted to gank that sniper, he could have already at least 3 times over, right? He has the ability to do this, right? I mean, obviously the laser would probably be a dead giveaway, right? But the fact that there's this hesitancy on something that you can just buy and apply in-game is a problem.
Especially at a distance, where Sniper mostly resides. Not that it matters, because people at point fucking blank couldn't tell who I was either. Look at this shit.
No fucking way, dude. He even set me on fire.
Awful.
What team was that just now? Could you tell? How about that one?
No.
As before, I left those on screen for a third of a second, but that's almost always too late in the instance of a sniper. And
That's actually that's actually fair, because using it at the beginning in terms of recognition and saying that was especially generous as a third of a second versus a quarter of a second, and now using the same increment in time, that's how science works. Yeah, no, I love that.
that was easy. Now imagine you're playing the game with all the other visual noise going on. Veteran players' brains are wired to recognize team color as a shortcut for reactions. Their eyeballs reactively seek out those certain team-colored areas on the character models, guided by those ever-present contrasting areas. You did it just now too. Or at least you tried. But when you're not presented with enough team color and are given everything but, In that split second of coming across a player, you get confused, and that detracts from gameplay. If the background footage didn't make it obvious by now, I got away with insanely stupid shit that a sniper should never be able to get away with. You gotta put in a little bit more work with this cosmetic, but my god, it's insulting what you can do.
I'm not on your team, dude. Oh man, this fucking game.
Especially if you combine it with something like the Darwin's Danger Shield, which covers up colored real estate from the rear, the Final Frontiersman, which just removes all remaining default color from the sniper, and then the final touch, there we go. All gone. Who the hell thought this cosmetic was a good idea? Seriously, what the fuck were you thinking? I mean, obviously they weren't thinking, that's why I'm making this video. These sniper cosmetics pretty much yielded the same results as the pyro cosmetics. I fooled people a few times before they caught on, but many players kept getting fooled and dying to poorly thought out game mechanics. Fair and balanced class, am I right?
Absolutely.
We're not chilling, we're gaming. You shut up, faggot. Shut up, hold on, wait. Pushing, we're doing push-ups. Don't give us a bad rep, man.
This clip in particular is fucking amazing. This guy actually says, "Who's shooting me?" when I'm in his field of view multiple times and I still kill him. It's fucked. It's beyond fucked, and apparently items like this are totally fine in the eyes of people who make them. Man, again, pay attention to the game you're making items for, because you don't want shit like this to happen. Oh yeah, and use a sniper rifle skin that is mostly oppositely team colored. When you're presented with a bright blue or red gun being carried by someone with no other identifiable team color, your brain hiccups for a second and associates that weapon's color with a team. So yeah, skins can pose a problem as well, and here's why. Weapons,
I do like the top shelf minigun though,
are an extension of the character model and often overlap them. When they do, they occlude the character model, and the weapons colors now become a part of team recognition. As such, all of TF2's default weapon models are either neutrally colored or team colored, and that prevents any issues. Most TF2 skins also abide by these rules, but there's a handful that don't. For example, the Chili Autumn War paint is just red. Croc Dusted is mostly just blue, and we have a handful of others. But to be clear, on their own, most skins rarely pose an issue. They are indeed out and away from the character model at most angles, and most of the time, character models are properly colored and take up much more visual real estate than any weapon. So, skins can get away with a lot without hurting the gameplay. But in tandem with other cosmetics, skins can really...
I hate this. That is a red pyro, and this is a blue pyro. I don't understand it.
Sell the package. As such, care must be taken with the design of TF2 skins to ensure that team recognition is preserved. Don't do shit like this, please. Just give us both team variants. It's not that hard. In fact, I know it's not that hard because I can do it myself.
And the nerve, I saw that wallpaper.
Now listen, I know, don't go apeshit in the comments. There are indeed other examples of scrutiny-worthy loadouts that can fuck with team recognition.
Oh, 100%.
But for this video, I just chose a couple of the more egregious examples.
Right.
And yes, I understand that it's difficult to make an item compatible with every other item in the game while also preserving team recognition and other stylistic elements. But there are some very obvious things you shouldn't do. No massive paint regions like this, and don't strip away expected team colors.
Right.
You get the gist. I suspect that at this stage, many of you watching this have this thought in mind. Many other cosmetics can change and cover default color, but a vast majority of these are fine. Now why is this? The difference is that for the most part, they change color in such a way that team recognition is preserved, preserving default colorization where players roughly expect it to be, or preserving expected colors within a class's palette.
Let's take, what is it, summer 2025, was it? Sir Builds a Lot, Engineer got a set of armor, right? Which, yes, I got, right? Let's say everybody got tin can armor sets right now, right? Like, as long as it is red or it is blue, I mean, you can do a lot. As long as you are telegraphing what it is, that's what matters. The issue here, like with the sniper, is when you remove expected regions and it is obfuscating what team they are on, right? especially in a game where the spy is a very real thing you have to deal with, right? So whether it's a suit of armor, even if you do, funny spook fortress and everyone's a skeleton, just have you either as a red or a blue skeleton, right? Now, that obviously runs into some other issues. You would have to find some way of maybe the heavy's gate, weapon, etc. would have to be maybe have some bigger bones, right? Something like the spy, maybe some more lithe bones, right? But you get what I'm saying though, right? Obviously maybe the hats and stuff are still a thing, right? You'd have to find a way to work around that, and there are people who have way more experience in Team Fortress 2 and looking at team recognition who could probably explain this better than I can. Point being, right? You have to make sure that one, you know what class you're fighting against, right? You have to know that you're going against a scout versus a sniper versus a spy versus a heavy versus an engineer versus a demo man, right? You have to know what you're fighting first and foremost, right? Generally, the weapon is a dead giveaway. Then you have to immediately after, well, and I guess these are technically you can swap these back and forth, right? For all intents and purposes, right? You have to make sure that you are, Pokestol GGC, thanks for what's up. You have to make sure that you are preserving team recognition. You need to make sure, are they red? Are they blue? Right? And if either one of these are obfuscated, that becomes a problem. You cannot play the game efficiently. I'm not saying high level competitive play, right? If you are brand new to TF2, right, which I still am, I would argue, right? And you hop in and you can't tell that somebody is let's use the fat scout, right? Love playing it, right? Let's say for some reason, right, you can't tell what the fat scout's color is, right? There's just a cosmetic and it obfuscates too much. So you see this heavy walking around with a pretty machete and you can't tell what team he's on, right? That's going to be a point of contention. Absolutely. Or you can't tell what team a spy is on, or you can't even tell if you're looking at a spy or a sniper for some reason, right? The recognition is important in both aspects, both class and color.
For example, this recent medic shirt we've just received, the Uber Wear. It replaces some of the white on Medic's torso, but it does so with darker team colors within his palette, and only the tiny tie is paintable. Players' eyes are still presented with healthy amounts of proper expected team color, and most of Medic's coat remains intact, so his silhouette and general appearance are preserved. Design liberties like these are okay, but not like this. Come on, guys, the teams are red and blue. Not orange, not yellow, not green or purple or pink. Not this shade of red, not this shade of blue.
I mean, honestly, yeah, stuff like this. I like the design, but I don't know. I don't think this is something that I would personally upvote, right? Going back to people trying to say, hey, we'll send you keys for upvoting us on the workshop. No, these are all, especially with this video, these are things to consider when trying to upvote something on the Steam Workshop.
This fucking red and this fucking blue. Just stop. It's not even a matter of figuring out who's on what team. It just looks out of place or flat out weird.
Yeah.
Like the smoking jacket. This saturated mess sticks out like a sore thumb. And no, making the pants to flesh out the set doesn't solve the problem either. And no one seriously thinks an item like this is appropriate for the game. My god, what the fuck are you doing?
No.
On a serious note, what bothers me is that some, not all, but some of the more prevalent workshop creators, many with multiple items in TF2, continue to make items like this, for example, and then openly mock anyone that points out how they would negatively impact gameplay. To me, that's pretty fucked up. These are the people that make most of the items for TF2, that Valve returns to on a regular basis. They know that their work has a very high chance of being accepted, and they scoff at the notion of taking care of the game. They laugh at you. They mock you, the players, and they're more than comfortable expressing just how little they care, until someone puts it on public display, of course. And I see it all the time. None of you guys see it because, I mean, shit, why would you care? Why would you bother going out of your way to look inside these workshop circles? Which are public until they don't want to be, but...
Hold up, what did that say? TF2 Emporium mod on why I'm banned and deemed unfit to interact with their creators, oddly possessed. Don't you think? That'll raise the question, but I'm not banned, and the only reason you weren't was because you had left the Discord and all the mods literally just assumed you were banned because you weren't here. When you joined back, the mods had your Discord ID so they could make the ban proper. If you want to know why you're banned, it's mostly because it's just impossible for you to coexist with our creators. Even if you were on your best behavior and giving honest feedback, we just shit show every flame war at a single time. What happened last time, as you know, Really liked Unity 2 ellipses. It's common for the Emporium to ban block anyone who gives their work anything other than praise. They also muscle out / bully creators who don't agree with sociopolitics or don't let the top brass creators who wet their beak with their work. Roughly 8% of accepted donations goes through the Emporium. First long-running monopoly that's been going on for over a decade. I'm going to be honest. I'm outside of my depth with this one. If I'm being completely honest, I try my best to be, pretty reasonable, pretty forward and positive with most people. I will say that if the individual who tried to give me keys was affiliated or associated with the Emporium, personally, I will. If that is common practice, I won't be associating. But look, they've done nothing to me. I've done nothing to them, right? I think that this is a fairly objective look at certain things, like on the workshop and stuff, right? This spy, I love the spy. I think this could work. I think it's way too vibrant, right? You're obfuscating. It's not. So you're obfuscating team, not in the same way as other things, right? But the yellow draws your eye more than the actual color, and that's the problem, right? And if you're telling me that if a comment like that is going to get people upset at you and ban you for, I think, fair and valid criticism, then yeah, that's on them at that point. I will continue to play TF2 and continue to get hounded by people who ask me to upvote their workshop project. And no, for full clarification, if you're going to ask me about workshop upvoting you, it's not happening because you asked. If you are going to try to bribe me with keys, no, I will not do that. And I actually would like to ask if that would be considered in any way, shape, or form against Valve TOS for future reference. So if anyone has the information on that, if somebody does try to bribe you for a favor like that to upvote their workshop creation or do something like that, I'd be very interested in that information. And if it is against terms of service, the proper way to report these people to not only Valve, but maybe even communities as well, because that speaks to the integrity of that individual. So that out of the way.
But someone's got to show players this bullshit. And I'll remind everyone here that you're free to comment on whatever these guys make on the workshop.
Yeah.
Vote with your clicks and with your words.
Exactly.
Don't be a dick about it. Don't go out of your way to be an asshole to somebody.
Yeah.
But remind them, if you're making items for TF2, you seriously need to pay attention to the game you're making items for.
100%. If I put out a video, right, it's open to criticism. If someone thinks I pause too much and I generally go way off topic, sure, absolutely. If I made, I'm not quite doubling the length of this video, but if I made this video 90 minutes, right, that does open me up to valid criticism of, hey, maybe you should watch a little bit more of the content before commenting, right? You put it out there. No, you should never have to take if someone's just going to be unruly or a dick, right? You shouldn't have to take that. What you do have to be open to is what we're all open to when we're doing social media, streaming, YouTube, etc. You have to be open to criticism, right? The engineer outfit, no, that yellow is going to mess with team recognition. It goes against the core identity of how silhouette and color interact with each other.
Preserving the game's aesthetic is one issue that gets mired in subjectivity, but preserving the gameplay is an absolute necessity.
Yeah.
Remember, you're allowed to say that you don't like something. Voting no is always an option.
Yes,
I'm
it
not
is.
going to sugarcoat it, but no thanks, not interested. Sometimes I feel like I understand this game better than these guys do. In fact, I know I do, because I've seen horrifically stupid arguments from these same workshop circles saying that preserving team recognition or class recognition or the general style of the game is some bitter act of resistance towards TF2's quote-unquote evolving art style.
Okay, if I cannot genuinely tell the difference between a demo man and an engineer, or if I can't tell the difference between a spy and a scout and a medic, bro, that is a straight L in design. The class must above all else, must be visible. You must be able to at a glance, that's a heavy, that's a medic, that's a pyro, right? That is non-negotiable. Ideally, because it is a team-based game and not a free-for-all. If it was a free-for-all, bro, I don't care what weird team obfuscating set you have, right? Be white pyro. But that's the problem, though, is that, you can't It's a team game, so you can't do that, right? We literally have evidence here of this. So yeah, you know what? Maybe I will go and do like 100 games on stream, 100 games regularly, right? And then I'll go do 100 streams with team obfuscation. And if there is a direct correlation, right, there, provided evidence, like actual factual bona fide evidence that would be pay to win in the event the KD was on average higher. Like, you have to know, and well, but games like Halo don't have to worry about it. Well, yeah, everyone's in Mjolnir armor, right? And yeah, generally they will especially back in Halo Reach days, right? Yeah, they would override your color with red or blue, right? Like, I don't agree with it being seen as contentious to want to preserve gameplay, because it's not just cosmetic, it's gameplay. I don't see it as being a good faith argument to try and argue that it's just antiquated to keep things there. If I can't tell what the class is, if I can't tell what team it is, that's a problem. That can't happen.
Fuck off. TF2's tones and themes and stylistic and design elements, especially those that define and control the gameplay, must not change. Especially not on the whims of those who want to make money off the game's cosmetic features. Through the words of TF2's original art director, Moby Frankie, TF2 was created with memorable, timeless visual design that complements gameplay clarity. Keyword: clarity. That clarity is ingrained so strongly that even after 16 years of trinkets getting pumped into TF2, most of its intrinsic gameplay elements are still miraculously intact. Yeah, cosmetics can and do get away with a lot, but that's not proof of TF2's flexible or evolving art style, it's proof of how robust it is. Even under all the crap and clutter, you can still tell what's going on.
Correct.
Actually, now that I've gone off script and I'm thinking about it, allow me to repeat a rather fitting metaphor from casual TF2. I know people get mad whenever I mention another YouTuber, it's like, oh, why is the bigot talking about this guy? But listen to me. Envision TF2 as a beautiful, well-built home. You can take comfort inside of its strong foundation within its four walls and have a good time. And then one day, some idiot hobbles through the front door and takes a piss on the living room rug. The house doesn't collapse, it doesn't burst into flames, but because the house didn't fall down around his ears, that idiot now thinks the house was made for pissing on. And before long, there's piss everywhere. That piss represents cosmetics like these. They stink like an irremovable stain, making the house reek of rot.
I think it just damages the integrity of TF2 as a brand. So just so people don't know that I'm actually not pulling up an argument out of thin air. Let me open this. Yeah, I made sure to copy to copy this and actually sent it to a person via DM. Hi, do you have a few minutes to talk? What's up? I work as a moderator on a TF2 website, and I'm going to ask if you wanted to advertise on your Steam profile. You need to put the name of your site in your Steam profile. Well, so this was another situation then. This also happened as well. Having somebody... So here's the thing. If I'm going to advertise something, if I'm going to be in any way, shape, or form sponsored, affiliated, whatever, like anything, right? There will be discussions in regards to contracts. There will be discussions in regards to terms of service, license agreements, even if those specifically aren't talking points like, well, we just want to be affiliated with you. Okay, what incentive do I have to be affiliated with you, right? I can tell you this specific individual, this was the first part of the conversation, but this person did push, and they tried to say, I'd like a few moments of your time, and they tried to push, and, I get it. Look, I get it. I get that this is a game with a thriving economy. I get that there's, backpack.tf. I get that there's a bunch of stuff. Look, I do reactions on YouTube, right? I'm not some, Zesty Jesus. I'm not some Lazy Purple. I'm not some Soundsmith, right? Uncle Dane, anything like that. I think it's also a little odd to be reaching out in this capacity. But this was a situation in which an individual did friend me. An individual did try to push to have me advertise their product, their site, and there just wasn't really any mention of any sort of paperwork, legal or otherwise, I wish responded with, sorry, I'm not looking at any sponsorship advertising opportunities at this time. I mostly play Team Fortress 2 for fun, and when I do reaction to TF2 content, it's technically not my own original content. I feel it wouldn't be proper. Thanks for reaching out. Right? Like, that's the thing, is everything I've said there is fair and reasonable, is it not? Right? Like, it's not technically my own content. This is Zesty Jesus' content that I am choosing to commentate over, right? With the understanding that if he's not okay with reactions, I can take these down. To clarifying as well, and thank you for this, PokeSouls, disrupt, damage, or manipulate Steam examples of such prohibited behavior include instituting an attack on a Steam server, artificially manipulating Steam reviews or other content, or automatically generating Steam accounts. Seems pretty clear. Bribes for upvoting seem like artificial manipulation. Personally, I would honestly say that as someone who's not an expert in legal, right? So if I see someone, again, try to do this, I will be pursuing what avenues I can, because no, I will not be bought for keys. I will not. And here's the thing, like, I literally came into TF2 how soon ago, right? Like, I'm not super, like, I'm not a vet, right? I'm still super new to this, right? Why should I be treated as anything other than a tourist who still has thousands of hours to learn how the classes work at a fundamental high tier level, right? That doesn't really seem fair, to come into the community and be told, hey, you should upvote all this stuff, and then upvote that, and then it makes the experience worse, potentially makes the experience worse for people who have actively played this game for years. You see how disingenuous that would be?
Degradation of TF2's visuals is the direct result of Valve's gradually increasing neglect, which leaves the front door wide open. Item creators' lack of care doesn't help either, because they're never held to higher standards by anybody. No knocks, no locks. And I've said all this before. Somebody's got to put their foot down. That's why I keep stepping in and stating the obvious. Things that people don't want to fucking say for fear of not being heckin' wholesome 420 chungus all the time. The deeply intentional facets of TF2's design are what attract people in the first place and keep people around. Not the piss. It's visuals, it's gameplay, it's characters, and so on. They define the full experience of this game. If you corrode these elements, you corrode TF2 and make it a shadowy specter of its former self. I mean, not that it isn't that already, but as time goes on, we keep getting more cosmetics in this game that chip away at its integrity, and we seriously need to pump the brakes before it gets any worse. Cosmetics have improved a lot recently. Keep pushing for better, guys, but Valve clearly does not care for this game as much as they once did, and they never will again. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't care. Stop pissing on my fucking rug.
They pee on your fucking rug?
Pee on my fucking rug.
Preserving TF2's visual nature isn't some contrarian act I perform out of spite. I love this game, but I'm tired of seeing it bastardized by people who take no interest in where this game came from, who have zero concern for and openly insult those who play it, and very obviously do not care for its visual design. I know I'm 10 years too late, but I actually care about my hobbies, and I want to preserve them for what they are. And I know the terminally online are sent reeling at the mere mention of gatekeeping, but for the sanctity of this game, you'd best goddamn believe I'm gonna keep gatekeeping these dipshits out, who want nothing more than to piss everywhere for their own benefit. If you outright refuse to acknowledge something as simple as preserving team recognition in Team Fortress 2, I mean, there's the door. Fuck off. Alright, that's it. I'll see y'all later.
I mean, honestly, I thought this was a really good video. I thought it went over a lot of good points. I think it was also a good time to illustrate things that I personally have experienced in the Team Fortress 2 community. And like most of the people I meet are honestly genuinely very, very kind. They're genuinely very cool. Love a lot of the people I've come across. And sure, yeah, you get the sweats in like Uncletopia servers, don't get me wrong. But that just makes the game, you're playing a harder game, right? Because that's where, you know, people will tend to congregate when they want to play a game at a higher level, right? So I think the issue I run into is, like, yeah, this feels like a compromise on core fundamental philosophies that the game has. And I think things like this are absolutely something we should be pointing out and something that we should be, you know, we should be critical of, right? And don't get me wrong, as an artist, one of the worst things that can happen, and it feels like, you know, the world is just crushing on you and crushing against you, right? Like, one of the worst feelings is having your art feel like it's not appreciated, or it's being shit on, or, you know, it's just being, bad art Lamau, right? Like, yeah, it's not a good feeling. But, well,
Rug really tied the room together, did it not?
I don't even know what movie this is. But yeah, it's one of those things where this should be a conversation that needs to be had. And apparently, this is a video from a year ago. I think it's improved. I don't know. I'd have to have more active players really describe the situation. And nobody, let's not be dicks to each other, right? If you don't like a workshop thing, instead of just saying this is bad Lamau, it's just like, yeah, no, I'm not interested in this. Or it's like, if you want to provide criticism, like, yeah, I think the yellow overalls aren't good. I don't think the yellow overalls are necessarily, on brand or on theme for the engineer. It draws the eye away from team recognition on the sleeves of the shirt, right? And that's how that should work. Providing valid criticism. From help from Chad, she found actual valid published examples of them enforcing this as well. I mean, if it's on the internet, if it's if there's examples of this, that's all that matters. Yeah. Just be safe out there. Make sure that you're thinking critically about things. Someone trying to offer you keys for something, for an action. Definitely consider if that is against Valve TOS or not. Because I know me personally, I don't really want to get banned for that. And I don't really want to affiliate or associate with individuals or even organizations if that is common practice. But that being said, I'm assuming all organizations are above board out there, and this just happens to be a small minority of individuals. So thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thought this was an amazing video. Thank you, Zesty Jesus, for another awesome deep dive into TF2 mechanically, and I will see you in the next one.